Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Wan, president at Personal MBA Coach. Personal MBA Coach has been guiding clients for 17 years with a 96% success rate. And last year, our clients earned over $11 million in scholarships. Scott Edinburgh, our founder, and my brother was named the top consultant this year on Poets and Quants, and we've been named the top boutique MBA admissions consulting firm for the past 2 years. So as an SOM alum, I'm delighted to be joined here today by Bruce DelMonico, Assistant Dean for Admissions at Yale School of Management. Well, Bruce will tell you more about himself and his impressive career in Yale today. Bruce has been running admissions since I was at SOM, and I was lucky enough to have Bruce as an advisor. So it's extra special to be sitting down with Bruce this morning. So Bruce, do you want to start off by telling us how you first got involved in admissions?
Sure, of course. And first of all, Aaron, it's great to see you. It's always wonderful to connect, and I'm glad that we continue to be able to do so, intermittently over the years.
Yes.
In your role. It was wonderful to have you on campus as a student. So yeah, in terms of my own sort of journey, I am actually, as we're shooting this, I'm within like a week or two of my 20th anniversary at Yale. So it's been a while. And I don't think anybody, it's definitely a found profession. I don't think anybody growing up thinks, I want to be an admissions officer when I grow up. And for me, I first got involved actually when I was in undergraduate and then in law school. I was involved in selection work, not necessarily admissions, but I was a counselor in undergraduate and was involved in a committee that selected other counselors. And then when I was in law school, I was on a committee that awarded scholarships to students who did public interest law internships over the summer. And I really liked those experiences. And I kind of, before I came to Yale, I was actually a practicing lawyer. And as I was practicing, I was, thinking about, what path my career would take, and thinking about, gosh, what experiences I had that I really enjoyed, and the both in undergrad and law school, the committee work, the selection work really appealed to me. And so I thought, maybe I would, as I was thinking about whether to continue in law or do something else, and I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to join the School of Management here at Yale. And having those past experiences really what motivated me to take the leap. And as an aside, that's when I talk to candidates, and sometimes they're thinking about what they want to do. I do advise, like, think about what you've done in the past, what you've enjoyed, and think about what kind of career might be most analogous to that. And so that's certainly what I did in my own career.
It's always so interesting to see people come to admissions with so many different backgrounds. So what keeps you at Yale? Anything special about Yale that keeps you there that you
Yeah, obviously you know this better than I do. It's a lot that's special. I think the two things really are the people and the mission. And they're in my mind, they're interwoven. I think the people who are here are often here because of the mission. And I think as a result, it tends to be very kind of uplifting, kind of service-oriented place. Even those students who are going into, investment banking or management consulting, I think are really thinking about the kind of positive impact they can have. And I think that makes it a really positive place to be. But the sort of the mission of educating leaders for business and society, I think definitely is sort of the animating feature. And I think that as I said, that's created a sort of a curriculum, a culture, a value system, and I think a community ultimately that makes it a place that you want to, I've wanted to come to and then stay at for 20 years, 2 decades.
Wow, that's amazing. In fact, actually, I was going to ask you about the mission. So why don't I jump to that question now? Obviously, the mission's always mattered at SOM. So how do you see students getting involved in their own mission today? How has that changed over time in terms of, how students engage with Yale's mission?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's definitely, and the mission isn't one thing. Again, as you know, I feel like so it's always fun to talk to you because I'm like, this again better than I do. The mission, educating leaders for business and society, it's not a single thing. It's people translate it into what it means to them personally in different ways. And I think it kind of coalesces around a certain set of values about, as I mentioned, about service, about thinking broadly about the kind of impact you have, about understanding the interconnection among sort of the public, nonprofit, and private sectors. And sort of thinking about those sorts and other sets of values that then kind of guide students and alumni. And I think for a lot of students, and there are definitely subcomponents to that. And I'm happy to talk about sort of the global nature of the mission, and other aspects. But I think certainly as students, there are lots of opportunities to kind of live their values and live the mission here in New Haven, on campus and in the New Haven community in terms of, for example, doing consulting to local businesses, sitting on boards of local organizations. We actually have, I think one of the ways that's, as you talk about evolving over time, one of the big initiatives for the university, Yale more generally, is the Center for Inclusive Growth here in New Haven. It's a partnership between Yale and the city of New Haven, which is led by an SOM alum. There's a real strong connection between Yale and the city, and that's something that the university has worked hard to develop over the years. But through this new Center for Inclusive Growth, which is being managed by SOM, by Dean Charles here, there are opportunities for students to act as fellows, to be involved in kind of thinking about how to have positive impact in the New Haven community. And I think that's, again, an example of thinking about how, so private, public, nonprofit, how to work together, different ways in which both market forces and sort of the hand of government and others can work together to try and lift up everybody in the community and not just have it be benefits reserved to a select handful. So I think that the Center for Inclusive Growth itself is the most recent manifestation of the mission, but I think it kind of permeates, really just about everything we do here.
And that's great. That's great. And definitely a lot of interest now, and sort of it's fun to see candidates, potential clients come through and talk about all the change that they're looking to make in their own careers. You mentioned global, and I know last year we were lucky enough to come on campus and Yale talked a lot about the global programs. Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of what's new in the global world for you?
Yeah, no, I think it is an important aspect of the experience here. And I think for a lot of sort of US MBA programs, sort of those global aspirations are kind of a core part of the experience. I think for us, certainly that's the case. And I think we've been lucky being at Yale. One of the, I think the unique features of the experience here at SOM is taking part in those global opportunities and being part of, especially of the Global Network for Advanced Management, GNAM as we call it, which is, I think it's now over 10 years old, I believe, and it was started by sort of Ted Snyder and David Bach, former dean and deputy dean here at the school. And the idea is to connect top business schools from around the world and on 5 continents, and thinking about giving students at all these schools opportunities to connect with each other, to connect with the faculty, to learn from each other. And that's been, I think, a really unique feature of the experience here. And through that, we have sort of global network weeks. We have virtual courses. We can do some study abroad opportunities that are specific that can be extended into these other schools that really give our students, I think, that global perspective that I think is necessary to be a successful leader in the 21st century. And that's just one example. We have international experience trips. We do have other, semester abroad programs, although I've, learned more recently that it's more common to actually do half a semester, because obviously for, in a 2-year program, taking a whole semester away is a big commitment. It's probably analogous to taking a year away in a 4-year undergrad, but it just seems like a lot. So students sometimes will take just a half semester away. But these have all been, they're part of our global studies requirement that is part of the experience here. Everybody has to undertake some international experience while they're here. Again, that's a core part of the education. Actually, this school provides funding for you to participate in these programs. So that's continues to expand and evolve over the years. I think it's the global network itself has gotten pretty mature, but the opportunities that are happening through them every year is different in schools. We're thinking about adding more schools to the network, and kind of where there are gaps that can be filled. So that's always wonderful to see that continuing to develop.
So many great opportunities. I know when I was on campus, I went to Japan. I still remember that trip and visiting the Tokyo factory. And so definitely a great opportunity. I wanted to make sure folks were aware of.
Yeah. Did you go, as I said, did you go with Art Swarzy when you went, or was it someone else who led it?
That's a good question. Did Art lead it? I don't know. I loved Art. I remember if he led it that year. I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I think I would have. I think we were the guinea pig trip, at least to Japan.
Yeah. I say the international experience trips, those are the like the faculty-led trips are among, I mean, the global network weeks and the global network opportunities are very popular. Those international experience trips are still happening and they're still extremely popular as well.
Oh yeah, I bet. So what do you see as sort of the common misconceptions about Yale? I know there's obviously, kind of the obvious, one that the mission is sort of Yale's a bigger part of the campus, but what do you think are the sort of the
Yeah.
big misconceptions?
Yeah, I think that probably would point to that. I think people often translate the mission to mean that everybody who comes to SOM is interested in sort of nonprofit management. And we do have, people who are, students who are interested in that, and that's not an uncommon thing. And we have a long history, obviously, before when the school was founded, it actually wasn't an MBA, and as you know, it wasn't an MBA program, it was an MPPM, a Master's of Public and Private Management. And so it did that multi-sector approach was kind of built into actually the name of the degree itself. And I think people, because of the mission, because of the values, because of other things, I think there's a sense that, I've talked to people and I think 90% of our students are doing nonprofit management. I think our career outcomes are, in terms of the distribution, probably relatively comparable to other top business schools, and we do have, but we do have a strong nonprofit, strong social sector, strong public sector track. But I think most people are doing, consulting. A lot of people are doing investment banking. Like the range of opportunities that exist everywhere else also exist at Yale, and maybe I would argue maybe it's even better at Yale for various reasons, but certainly it's just as strong as any other top business school. So I think that's a common misconception that I think that people still do have.
So why I'd love to give you a chance to say why is it better at Yale for people
Put me on the spot. Well, I think for a few, I mean, and I'll preface this by saying, obviously, I am not at other schools, so I can't say definitively like all the various things that happen at other schools. I think a couple of things I would say though are our career development office. Obviously other schools have great offices, but our career development office is incredibly strong. They work incredibly hard. They are great at partnering with students, and it's really less about sort of getting students that job after graduation, although obviously that's the most immediate goal, but it's more about helping, they're helping students develop the skills to have be successful in a lifetime of searches and a lifetime of career development. And so I think that's been an important part. And again, I don't know that that's necessarily completely different from how other schools exist, or what exists at other schools, but I think that's an important part. I think another part is, and this again manifests itself in other forms, being at Yale and leveraging the Yale network. Obviously, there are other business schools that are at other sort of excellent universities, but I think one of the sort of differentiators for the School of Management here at Yale is that we are integrated into the university and we're not standalone. I think there are some business schools that are standalone in the sense they don't reside there at a larger university, and there are others that are kind of de facto standalone. They're in a larger university, but they don't really interact with that university. At SOM, we interact with Yale, and that includes on the career side, it includes like getting access to the entire university alumni network, which I think is powerful and very meaningful. And I think that's been kind of a key differentiator. I can't say that we're the only school for which that's the case, but I think it does help to be at a university like Yale and to actually have access to the resources that the university has to offer.
Yeah, definitely that broader network, even as Bruce and I were talking right before, as I've looked to kind of grow our own team and look to partner for some MBA Coach, we've been using the Yale network brought outside of the SOM. So that's been a great resource. So we talked a little bit about careers. And so what are you seeing? Are you seeing in terms of trends, in terms of the applicants that are coming to you in terms of their career goals, where they want to go, where they're coming from? Are there trends have you been seeing in that career space?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's been, in terms of the incoming side, it's been relatively stable over the years in terms of where students are coming from. I will say, just in terms of, for example, the sector breakdown, it's usually about 80% of our candidates our students are coming from the private sector, and about 20% are coming from a combination of the nonprofit and public sectors. That's been pretty stable, I think, more or less throughout my time. I can't go back 20 years on top of my head, but in the last kind of say half dozen years, at least, that's been the case. And then on that outgoing side, there has been, and I don't know if you're talking about career outcomes or talking about just student profiles, and feel free to follow up. But if I'm not answering the correct question, but on the outgoing side, there's definitely been a steady increase in consulting outcomes as consulting placement. I think that's probably not uncommon. So management consulting, I think maybe last year, the year before last, hit a high water mark. Half the class went into management consulting, which is maybe a little bit too too concentrated. And I think that's eased down a little bit. But I think I do see that's my sense, at least, to talking to alumni and just talking to the colleagues here, that there is increasingly a sense that sort of management consulting has been a good sort of proving ground of sorts, a way to get to first for graduates, early career graduates, to sort of get the skills that they can apply in other contexts. And so I've seen that increasingly as a trend. I think that maybe will be a little bit of a retrenchment, sort of given sort of the hiring trends in the economy more generally. But I think that will continue to be the case, that, management consulting tends to be a very, very popular, coming in increasingly so.
Oh, that's great to hear. I know consulting is obviously a popular goal for our own clients, so definitely helpful. Before we switch and ask you some more specific application questions,
Yeah.
just curious, what's new on campus? Anything that folks can look forward to over the next year or two that you think would be interesting to share?
Yeah, I mean, there's always stuff going on. So, and I think actually I've already mentioned it, the Center for Inclusive Growth, I think is going to be a big thing. I think that's going to create lots of opportunities for students. And I think we'll really have an impact on the experience here. There are programmatically, there are other things that are happening. And the school launched a new technology management degree that is started. It's in working with SEAS, which is the sort of engineering department, and is really focused on, it's on Yale students for now, Yale undergraduates, bringing them into SOM after they graduate from undergrad. But I'm hoping, and there's a possibility that will expand more broadly. And we just launched a new joint degree with the engineering department. So, which is similarly with the engineering theme, which is just, it will start next fall. So we're just starting to accept applications for it now. And that's one of the few joint degrees. We have lots of joint degrees, as you know, with lots of other Yale schools, from law to medicine to the environment school to drama, architecture, and beyond. But we hadn't had engineering before, and we were able to work out an agreement with the engineering department to make that happen. So that's a nice addition, I think, to the program. And I think we'll look forward to having the students with that in that joint degree, and with that perspective represented, hopefully, at the school. So those are two things. I mean, obviously there's always an exciting sort of flow through of sort of speakers and conferences and colloquia. I'm trying to think of sort of the larger scale of other stuff that's happening, but those are, I think, two big changes that are still in the works, and for candidates who are thinking about applying now and starting next fall, hopefully will be in place for them when they arrive.
That's great. Yeah, we definitely have more and more clients that are looking at joint degrees, so it's definitely becoming more popular. So what are your thoughts in terms of admission process evolving over time? Sort of any changes that you are, thinking about at Yale that potential applicants maybe next year or down the line should be thinking about or keeping in mind?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, the admissions process, it's always kind of evolving. It's not a static thing. I think, there's a sense that, the application just kind of stays, as I mean, you're in this, on your day to day, you see how the applications across the schools are changing in the different transformations. We've, for a long time, we've tried to think about how to look beyond like the more traditional kind of inputs, academic record and test scores and work experience. Looking at those things, we look at those things, though those are sort of strong drivers of our process. But we've tried to think about other elements we could introduce that would help us get a fuller sense of candidates. Obviously, recognizing that the admissions process is kind of a very limited insight into who you are as an individual, and it's kind of it's a little bit of a sort of a snapshot, and not even a very well focused snapshot at times. But we've introduced, and this has been a few years now, our video questions, our behavioral assessment. We continue to think about other kind of additional or different kinds of inputs that we could introduce that would help us get a fuller sense of candidates and help have a more balanced and you know, as you know, the word holistic, have a more holistic view of individuals' candidacies. And so I don't know that there's anything immediate on the horizon there. But we continue to work on that front. We're continuing, obviously, another big trend is sort of artificial intelligence and the use of AI in admissions, both on the candidate side and also on the, you know, on the admissions office side. We don't have, this year we put out into our application a statement on an AI and how we think it should be used. I'm sure that will continue to evolve and change over the coming sort of cycles as people get a better sense of like the you know, the benefits and kind of the pitfalls of AI. You know, we use it to some degree within the office. It helps expedite some of our work, but obviously it's most of our work continues to be very human centric. And the hope would be from the applicant side, it's the same as well. If you read our statement, it's really, you know, your work can be AI informed, but treated as you would kind of like a counselor or a friend, someone else who's kind of giving high level advice. It shouldn't be creating content for you or kind of writing your essay for you or anything like that. It's very much, you know, we want to make sure it's adding to the process and kind of not perverting it as it were. And then I guess this is maybe a little smaller scale. We have broadened our essay prompts to go from 1 to 3. To try to allow candidates to have more of a voice and more of their unique voice that's able to speak to us directly, as opposed to kind of having to force fit themselves into a single prompt. And so, again, I don't know if that's like a big evolution, but it's hopefully been that choice has been hopefully liberating and not paralyzing to candidates as they think about their Yale SOM application.
It's actually a perfect segue because my next question was going to be about that choice question. And it is interesting because we are seeing a bit more of choice, you know, in the application process. What advice would you give to someone who's really stuck on how to choose which question? Because that's definitely one that, you know, we get a lot and we have our thoughts, but love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. No, and it's true. It's tough because it's like a dual-edged sword. You think choices can be good, but also like it definitely can be anxiety inducing because, oh gosh, you know, anytime there's a choice, what, you know, you kind of game theory it out. Like, are we, you know, if I choose this prompt versus that prompt, am I at a disadvantage? What is the committee looking for? And I guess you know, if for candidates who are looking at the 3 prompts, and again, the idea was to increase choice, to allow you to write about the thing that is most important to you. And just to say, we used to have the 3 prompts are to describe, hope I get it right, the biggest commitment you've undertaken, the biggest challenge you faced, and the most you know, important community you've been a part of. And we used to for a number of years just have the commitment essay, and that was our essay. And then the reason we broadened it to include not just commitment but also community and challenge was because we were sensing that some people were kind of having to, as I said, kind of force an essay that maybe wasn't quite a commitment, but they wanted to talk about into that commitment prompt. So we tried to broaden it to allow candidates to really talk about the thing that's most important to them. But again, with choice, it comes stress about which, you know, how are we looking at it? And I can say we do not have a preference. It's not as though you will be you know, you will be better positioned or have more success if you choose one prompt over the other. And the advice I tend to give people, and this is advice I give on a number of areas and related to the application, is don't overthink it. I think trying to kind of keep it simple is often the best approach. Aaron, I don't know if that's consistent with what you tell candidates, but I think that where people tend to get tripped up is trying to kind of like spin out so many different hypotheticals or come up with so many different sort of various considerations. And I think when you look at the essay, and I've written about this in various contexts, you know, if there's a topic that just jumps out with you, just go with it. I don't try to overthink it. And if you're struggling with which one, you know, you have a couple of different ones, really what I would still say is like just take a moment and think about which one you're most excited to write about. And I think that should be the guide. And you know, before I was a lawyer, I was thinking about teaching literature, and you know, going back to that time, what I always say is, you know, you will, and I've experienced myself, you always write most compellingly when you're writing about something that really matters to you. And so when you're thinking about the prompts, if there's one topic, if you even have a couple of topics you're thinking about, if there's one topic that really excites you and you really want to write about it, I feel like that's the one you should go with, because that's the one you're going to write most compellingly, most forcefully about. And I think that's the thing that will come through.
Yep, definitely. We just wrote an article about how to handle choice essays, since I know you were one of the first and now so many are doing it. And that's the same thing we said, don't overthink it. So, glad to kind of hear that you're giving clients or our clients the same advice, or candidates. So is there something or anything that you wish applicants would do differently when they're applying, kind of common, pitfalls, as we like to call them?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I mean, obviously there are lots of different things you you could touch on in at various levels, from like the very fine grained proofreading to the large scale, issues of just sort of having a like a direction of where you want to sort of take yourself post MBA. I think, but in terms of like a just general advice in mistakes, um, I mean, I think I would just quickly reiterate the don't overthink it. I think that applies to lots of aspects of the application. I'm glad that we're giving the same advice too. We did not compare notes beforehand, so it's good that actually worked out. That's one. I think, I guess related to that, I guess two other things I would say, if it's okay to give a couple. And one is, and the related to don't overthink it is, again, don't try to predict what you think we're looking for. We, in any top business school, we have such diverse student bodies, and we have so many people coming from so many places and wanting to do so many different things and with so many different experiences. There's no one thing we're looking for. And we at Yale, I think there's certain values we're looking for. We wanted people who are sort of broad-minded and kind of and curious, and there's certain qualities that we feel are important, but we're not looking for any specific experience or any specific path or any specific. So I think there was a time I've seen it get less over the years. So I think people are appreciating this, where you would see, someone, they wanted to be, position themselves as this kind of candidate, a finance candidate because they're applying to a finance school, and then a operations candidate because they're applying to an operations school, and a marketing candidate because, and the same persons are like presenting themselves as different candidates depending on where they're applying in. That often rings very hollow. So I think most candidates know better know that we're looking for such diversity that they don't need to kind of fit into a particular mold or fit into a kind of a profile that they think the school's looking for. So I would, to the extent that that's still a tendency or still a temptation, I would, counsel applicants out of that and not try to predict what we're looking for. And I think maybe one other thing I would say, which again, I sometimes say in other contexts, is I think often candidates understandably are reluctant to highlight any sort of weaknesses in their application. It could have, if it was, any softness in terms of like sort of the academic background or their professional trajectory or something like that, and they're worried that it's going to reflect poorly on them. We obviously will see that because we will, and looking at their application and your application, we'll notice, if you had like a bad semester, or if there's a work gap, or the career path doesn't quite make sense. And I think quite frankly, I think you're better served addressing that proactively than in ignoring it and hoping we don't see it. And I understand the temptation. Obviously, you want to put your best foot forward in the application. You want to present a positive candidacy, and obviously you don't necessarily want to lead with any of the weaknesses. But I think, again, getting back to my legal days, when in litigation, it's called drawing the sting, when you kind of you address an issue on your terms before others can kind of frame it for you differently. And I think that's often helpful. And again, Erin, you know this again better than I do, and I'm sure you're counseling your candidates to do this, is make sure that you are explaining the things that need to be explained and not ignoring them in the candidacy. And I think that's a mistake I tend to see, again, less and less, but I still see it sometimes. So I would advise people to think about that and when constructing their application.
That's great advice, and definitely mirrors what we tell applicants. So, always great to hear. Staying in application, but switching gears a bit, what's the best way to connect with Yale, with students, with admissions directors? Kind of what advice would you give folks who want to come and want to figure out, how to connect?
Yeah. Now, I think there are a number of great ways to connect. We try to make the opportunities as sort of, plentiful as frequent and as easy as possible. For students, I think the best way, we have what we call our student ambassadors, who are current students who are, available to talk about their experience. And, we have a number, and their profiles are listed on our website. And there's a student ambassadors page on our website. And you can kind of sort them by clubs, by kind of, backgrounds, by sort of citizenship, to get a sense of who might have a similar background or, similar interests to you. And then you can reach out to them and connect by email, maybe by phone, or Zoom. So I think that's a great resource to get to know our current students. For the admissions team, we have events happening pretty consistently, anywhere from and some that we're on, some that we facilitate with our community of students and alumni. So another way to connect with students is through the events that we organize. That might be a panel, might be a workshop, might be different formats. And then we have our own events that we, online events, especially, that we will host, again, happening now throughout the cycle. So you can sign up for that, like a Q&A session, or I do office hours personally, and we have other kind of application workshops that will be coming up around too, where you can kind of we talk through like different pointers and do's and don'ts for the application process. So those are always great. And I had one other thing, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, I guess we do have, I think it's happening tomorrow, campus visit. There are different opportunities to come to campus. I say that not with the expectation that people do. It definitely is, we have people are thinking about joining us from all over the world. And so it's maybe easier if you're in New York to get here, but less easy, more difficult if you're in Beijing, for example. So we don't have the expectation that you'll make it to campus, but if you are in the Northeast and it does work out, we certainly would love to welcome you to campus just to meet us in person. And you can connect with an admissions officer there. You can connect with students there, get a tour of the school, sit on class. So it's a nice opportunity.
Lots of ways to engage and see the beautiful
Yes.
building that I'm
Yes.
jealous that we did not have when we were there, but it was great to go back and sort of see the building. So a little bit, we are hearing more and more, and obviously more schools are having deferred programs from
Yep.
clients who are in college now and interested in sort of getting the jump on the MBA.
Yep.
Specific advice for those who are interested in the Silver Scholars Program?
Yeah, no, so Silver Scholars, that is our early career. And it's interesting, we get kind of lumped into the deferred admissions group, understandably. But we're obviously, I think you would know better. I think we are unique. We're the only program that is not actually deferred, in the sense that you apply in your last year of undergraduate. So as a college senior, your last year at university. And then you start with us immediately. Like if you graduate in the spring, you'll start with us in the fall. There's no sort of 2-year period where you're kind of working and then coming back. So that's unique to us. And I'm trying to think when this started. It started a little before I joined. We've been doing this for maybe a sort of quarter century at this point. It's been a very long-standing program for us, and very successful. We have some great students who come through it. Right now, it's typically about 5 to 7% of the class is Silver Scholar. So again, you apply in your last year of undergraduate and then start with us. And it's a 3-year program in total. Just so people understand. So you do your first year with us, you do an extended 1-year internship, and then you come back with us and do your second year with us, second academic year. So it's 3 years total, but obviously you then will graduate in 3 years as opposed to 4 or 5 or how many much for other deferred admissions programs. And I think the advice I give to Silver Scholars is, it's the same application, it's the same process. The experience is this, other than the 1-year internship versus the typical summer internship for other MBAs. It's this, you're in the same courses, in the same cohorts, in the same classes as everybody else. So we look at Silver Scholars very much as in a very similar way as other candidates, but we do appreciate the fact that when you apply as a Silver Scholar in your last year of undergraduate, you don't have full-time post undergraduate experience, and so we tend to look lean a little more heavily on your academic profile because that's what we have most immediately from you. But we do want to see, and you shouldn't ignore the non-academic experiences you've had, internships, activities in undergraduate. And I think oftentimes those were the things that help us get a sense of your professional potential, because we were still trying to gauge both your academic potential and your professional potential. We have fewer data points to gauge the professional potential. So we will look at internships, we will look at activities and other maybe leadership opportunities you've had in undergraduate. So what I would say for silver scholars is don't ignore those, and definitely try to think about how you can make sure that that's part of your candidacy to help us get a sense of that professional potential, even though it's a little bit more remote than some other candidates.
Yeah, that is really helpful. And thank you for explaining, to folks listening the difference. We do end up lumping the Silver Scholars Program in, and, everyone's programs are a bit different. Yale's is definitely unique, because it is the same sort of the senior in college, core, audience, but, definitely a great program. And there were Silver Scholars I know were in our class, and it was really interesting when we were there. So any kind of final tips you have for applicants excited about Yale SOM? Kind of anything else I didn't ask, or advice you'd want to give folks who are, hoping to add Yale to their list and join?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered a good bit, and hopefully it was all helpful. I mean, the one thing I would say if you're thinking about SOM is definitely, we're excited to receive your applications if you're thinking about us, and I would definitely, definitely to reiterate the ways to connect with the community, with our students, the student ambassadors, with the admissions office, through both our virtual. We have some in-person events coming up, but a lot of virtual events, and also we kind of facilitate interactions, events with students and alumni and others. So I think don't feel like you need to attend these. It's not like it's required in any sense, but to the extent you're looking to learn more, we definitely welcome that. We welcome the engagement. I personally, again, I have office hours, and I'm always happy to help share whatever insights I can, as for those of you who are thinking about SOM. But we definitely welcome your application. We're excited to continue to build fantastic classes there. And you're, you're again eyewitness to, hopefully, to the strength of the community, strength of the student body, and we're looking to always continue to have just great impressive people come through and go on to do great things from the Yale as their launching pad.
Well, thank you so much, Bruce, for sitting down with me today. It's always great to connect. So if you are thinking about Yale, reach out to Bruce, visit campus. If you're looking for help, reach out to Personal MBA Coach. We're happy to help you with your Yale applications. And thank you again.
Thanks so much, Erin.
Here.